In the last video we have seen how we can export data into the Excel file using this Laravel Excel package. Now today in this lesson we will see how we can import Excel data into the database using this Laravel Excel package. So let's start. In the documentation, this package provides us artisan make import command, and this command will create import class and it will contain some boilerplate code that going to import data into the database. So let's implement this. To import the data, I have this Excel file. In this column we have user's name, and in this column we have user's email address, and I am going to import that into the users table. So first I'll create a new route. In this route I will create an input field to upload this Excel file. So in the editor, in the routes web.php, here I'll create route get users import route. It is going to be users import controller at show, and next route is the post route to import the data from the Excel files, and it is going to be users import action is users import controller at store. Next I'll create this controller. So in the terminal, php artisan make controller users import controller. It's done. Next in the editor, app http controllers user import controller. Here I'll create two methods, show and second is the store. Now in this show method I'll return view users dot import. Now let's create this view file. So in the resources views, here I'll create new file users slash import blade.php. Now in this import blade file, I am going to steal some markup from this home blade file and paste it right here. Now here is the import Excel, and next here I'll create form, and here action is users import. Next method is post, and ink type multi-part form data because we are going to upload file CSRF token. Now here I'll create div form group, and in this div I'll create input type file and name is file. Next I'll create button, type is submit, class is btn primary import. Now let's see this in the browser. So in the terminal I'll run php artisan serve. Now let's open this in the new tab, users import, and here we go, we have input field. Next we will work on this store method, and this store method going to handle the uploaded Excel file. So here it is going to accept request $request. Next here we should validate the uploaded file, and I'm going to skip this because our main focus is to import the data into the database. Now here we can access the file from $request file, and the input field name is file. Next I will create user import class that going to handle the uploaded Excel file and store the content of the Excel into the database. So in the terminal, here I'll run php artisan make import users import. Next here I'll pass model. In our case that model is user model. Now in the editor we have new import directory, and this user import class implements toModel interface, and this interface required this model method, and it accepts the array of single row and this row will contain the single row of the Excel file. In our case, in the 0 index it would be username, and in the index 1 it would be email address. So here we will return new user, and here I'll pass name is equal to $row index 0 and email is row index 1. And next, in the user table, password field is also required, so let's pass password as well. Hash make password. Now let's try this. So in the controller, here I'll say Excel and import, and in this import method I'll pass this user import class. So new users import, and next in the second parameter I'll pass Excel file. After successful import, I will return back with the status Excel file imported successfully. Now let's try this in the browser. So in the terminal, here I'll run php artisan serve. Now let's go to browser. Now let's import the Excel file. I have specified the wrong action path in the form right here. Let's fix this. Now go to browser, refresh one more time, and import Excel file. Now it is uploading the Excel file, and here we go. Excel file imported successfully. Now if we go to database, and in the users table we have records from the Excel file. Next, it also provides a importable trait. So let's see this, and here I will use importable, and now in the controller, instead of this, here I can say new user import and then import method. In this method we will pass Excel file, and it will work exactly same. Let's see. Here I'll import that Excel file. Of course, here we will get the error because in the database level the email address must be unique. In a moment I will also show you how you can handle this error as well when uploading an Excel file. So first I will roll back the migration. So php artisan migrate fresh, php artisan serve, refresh. Now let's try to import Excel file, and it worked exactly the same. And in the database, refresh, and we have the records in the users table. Now here we have uploaded the Excel file, and that file is directly passed right here. We have not stored that into the local server. It is absolutely fine for the small size Excel files, but for the large size file, we first store the file into the local server, and then we should pass the file path in this import method. So here we should say store, and here I am going to pass the directory where it should store the uploaded Excel file. Let's say directory name is import. Now first in the terminal, php artisan migrate fresh and php artisan serve, and upload the users Excel file, import, and it is imported successfully. Now in the editor, if we go to storage directory, app, and here we have new directory import, and in this import directory we have the uploaded Excel file. This store method generates unique ID for the uploaded file. Now if we see the Excel file, in this column we have the name, and in this column we have email address, but right now we don't have the heading of this column. Generally we upload the Excel file and those Excel files has the columns heading. So let's add the heading here. So here I am going to insert new row, name, and here email. Let's bold this. Now if we try to upload this Excel, it is going to also store the headings into the database, and we don't want that. So for that, in the users import class, here I will implement with heading row interface and make sure to import its class right here. Now it will ignore the first row, and in this row, instead of index, we can pass the headings. Now let's try this. So first in the terminal, I will migrate fresh PHP artisan serve. Now in the database, refresh. Right now we don't have any records. Next in the browser, let's import the Excel file, and it is imported. Database, refresh, and we have all the records. Now let's handle the errors. Right now we have already uploaded this Excel file, and these records are already stored in the database. So this time if I try to upload Excel file, it will give a SQL error, because in the database level we have unique constraint on the user email address. Now to handle this error, here I'll implement skip on error interface. Now let's try this time if we get any error. This interface requires on error method also. So here we need to create method on error, and this is going to accept throwable error, and in this method you can handle this error as you want. Now let's try this. Upload the Excel file, import, and it is uploaded successfully. So what this interface does, when you try to insert the record into the database, and if we got error, it will skip that row and move to the next row to insert. It also provides us skips errors trait. Using this trait, we can access the errors right here in the controller. So here what I'll do, here I'll say $import is equal to new user import, and next here I'll say $import, and next here I'll dump $import errors. Now let's try this. It has not given us any error. I think that is because in the user import class we have this on error method. Let's remove this. Let's try one more time. Here are 74 errors caught when it is trying to store into the database, because all the 74 records already exist in the users table. So to test it one more time, what I am going to do, I will delete all the records except the last one. Let's try one more time and upload this. And now it has got only one error. And in the database, refresh, and here we have all the records. How cool is that? Now here you can handle this error as you want. Now here we know that this error is because it is trying to create a duplicate entry for this email address. So the better way is that we should validate the row before it is inserted into the database. For that, in the user import class, here I will implement with validations interface. Next we need to create method rules, and here we need to declare the return type array, and now we will return array, and in this array we will specify the rules similar like we specified the rules in the controller to validate the request. So here I'll pass star.email, it must be email and it must be unique in the users table in the email column. Here star means it should validate the all rows, and this email is the heading name. In the case if this Excel file do not have the heading, so here we will use the index, like in our case it would be 1 because we have used the heading, so here I'll pass email. Next, in the blade file, right here I will display the validation messages. So here I'll say if is set $errors and $errors any, and then here I'll add the bootstrap alert box. So div alert danger, and here I will say for each $errors call as $error, and here I am going to print that error. Now let's upload the Excel file, see if we get any error. Import, and here you can see we have the error on row 2. The email has already been taken and the error is right here in this row. Now here you may ask that these all email address already exist in the users table, so why it has displayed the validation message for row 2 only? That is because when it caught any validation error on any row, it stops there and do not insert the next rows, and it also rollbacks the previously inserted rows. So let's say if it caught the validation error on the row 10, and then it will stop right there and it will not insert next rows and also roll back the previously inserted rows. Let's see. So let's say in the database I'm going to remove all of them, and it has only one record, and that record is the last row in this Excel file, this one. Now try to upload one more time. And now you will see that there is error on row 75. The email has already been taken, and that is 75th row is this one. And if we go to database and refresh, we will see only one record because it is using transactions, and it rollbacks every previous record that is inserted when it caught the validation error. Now let's say you don't want transaction here. It should store all the records in the database, and it should skip only that row which has the validation error. So for that, in the users import class, let's move these all interface class in the next line. And here I will implement new interface skips on failure. And this interface requires method on failure, and it is going to accept failure class $failure. This failure variable will store the validation error on single row, and in this method you can handle the validation error as you want. Now let's try this and import the user Excel file, and here we get the Excel import successfully, and it has not given the error for this record which is already exist. And if we refresh, we have all the records. But now how we can display the validation error right here? So for that, I will use the trait skips failures. Now here in the controller, let's dump $import failures. Now let's import the Excel file again. We did not get the validation error. That is because we have this method. So let's remove this, import the Excel again, and now here we get these 74 validation errors, and this validation has the row, email, error message and values. So let's display this message in the front end. So in the controller, here I'll say if $import failures is not empty, then we will return back with failures, and here I'll pass this import failures and remove this. Now in the blade file, if session has failures, then I'll add table. Let's add table danger. Here I will display th row attribute errors, and also let's display the value. Next here I'll say for each session get failures as error row, and then display the attribute. If you see this error attribute, it is array, so here we need another for each loop. Let's add the UL tag, and for each errors $e, and in the li tag I will print $e. Now here it not sounds good to me, error, so let's change this to validation. Now it's better, validation errors. Next I'll display the value, so here I'll say validation values, and then here I'll print $validation attribute. Now let's try this, refresh, and let's import this, and here we get the all validation errors. Let's delete some records except few, and now we have only 7 records. Now let's try one more time, refresh, import, now we get the validation error for 7 records only. Next we will see the batch insert. If you are uploading a large file size and it has thousands of records, and that may overload your server resource, because behind the scene it is executing insert query for every row. So with this batch insert, you can limit the amount of query by specifying batch size, and this will determine how many models will be inserted into the database at one time, and this will improve the import duration a lot. So let's see this. We will use this batch insert interface. So in the user import class, right here I'll say with batch insert and import that class. Next we need to add this method right here. Now this batch size 1000 may or may not suits to your server. It's all depend upon your server resources. So you have to play around and figure out which batch size suits to your server. Now let's try this. And here we get the validation errors. So let's first remove all the records. PHP artisan migrate fresh, PHP artisan serve. Now let's import this. And it is imported successfully. Now in the database, refresh, and we have all the records. But here you did not see any difference. That is because in the Excel file we have few records, but if you have large size, you will definitely going to see the improvements. Next we will see the chunk reading. Now if you are importing the very huge file, and that can impact on your memory uses. because you are trying to load huge file into the memory. So what this chunk reading will do, it will read the Excel file in chunks to keep the memory usage under the control. We have to use this with chunk reading interface right here and import that class, and we need to specify that method right here. And of course we will not see the difference because our file size is very small. The very large size file takes very long time to import, so it is better we should queue the import. So next we will see this queued reading. We can simply queue this import using this should queue interface. So let's add this. So let's add this right here and import this class. Next in the .env file, here I'll set queue connection to database. Next we need to create jobs migration for the queue. So in the terminal, php artisan queue table. Now in the database migrations, we have new jobs table migration. Now let's run the migration. php artisan migrate fresh serve. Next php artisan serve. Now let's import the Excel file, and you can see immediately we get the Excel file imported successfully. But if we go to the database and refresh, the users table is empty. We don't have any records in the users table, and in the jobs table we have one job in the queue. So to run this job we need to run queue worker in the background. So in the terminal I will split this screen, and here I'll say php artisan queue work, and now you will see it is processing the job, and this is reading the file in chunks. Now jobs are finished. So next in the database, refresh, job record is empty, and in the users table we have all the user records, and it is very useful if you have very large file. Next, the final thing we will see the how we can import the relationship model as well. For example, this user has one address as well, and this address contains the country. So let's say this Excel file has country column as well. So let me add the country column as well. Now we have a country column, and this country column is stored in the addresses table. So how we can implement that? Let's close this. Now here you will see that this user import class is using model, and this returns a user. If we are importing the single model, then it is a good choice, but for the relation table we cannot use this model. So instead of this we have to use the collection. So here we will remove this to model, and I will add to collection. Now this to collection interface required the collection method. So here I will change this model to collection, and now let's remove this, and it will accept collection $rows. Make sure this collection is the eliminate support collection. And next here we will remove this. I'll add for each. Next here I'll say $rows is $row, $user is equal to user model, and create name is equal to $row name, and email is $row email. Next password hash make password. In this user model we have address relationship. So here we can say $user address create, let's say country is $row country. Now remember that this with batch insert interface will work with only two model. because we have using to collection, so it is not going to work. So here I will remove it, and we can also remove this base size method. Let's go to terminal. Here I will roll back migration. So PHP artisan migrate fresh and run the PHP artisan queue work. Next, let's import the Excel file, and immediately we get success response, and in the terminal it is processing the job and it's done. And refresh, and here we have countries in the addresses table, and in the users table we have all the users. Now we have created the record for user and its address as well. Now one thing which I forgot to mention about this queue job, here I forgot to mention one thing about this should queue. When we upload the Excel file, it creates a job in the jobs table, and immediately we send the response that Excel file is imported successfully. So here our status is wrong because it has not inserted the record in the users table. So one thing here, the message should be import in queue. We will send notification after import finished. Now how we can track that the import process is finished? For that we will use event. So here we will say with events, and we will use trade register event listeners, and then here we will create a static method, public static function after import, and this will accept the after import $event. Now in this method you can send the notification. Maybe you can send the email to the user who is uploading the Excel file, or maybe database or other notifications. Now what if we get the validation error? For example, right now in the database we have already records. So if we upload the Excel file again, we get the message that import is in queue, and in the terminal we will see that import failed, but we did not see any error that why it failed. So what we can do in that case? So in that case what we can do, here we can add method on failure, and it is going to accept failure, and that is $failure. Now in this method we can handle the validation error. For example, what we can do, we will create a new table, let's say import fails, and in that table you can store that validation failure, and in the front end you can display the validation failures from this table. Because video is already very lengthy, so I'm not going to implement this feature. Now let's end this lesson. If you like the tutorial, hit the like button, share this